Hello, my little spudlings. It's Carla, and I'm here today in my kitchen making potato insanity cheese royale. This recipe is lifted partially from my book, That Sounds So Good. And in the book, it is simply called Potato Insanity. But to bring this recipe to life today, I was like, she needs more. She needs to be gilded. She needs to be decorated. She needs to be celebrated. She being the potatoes, but also me. I was transported to a memory, and the memory was Shake Shack Carla wasn't a huge burger person. So my snack du jour was cheese fries with sport peppers on top. I've basically taken potato insanity and that very strong nostalgic memory of the cheese sauce at the Shake Shack and put them together to make potato insanity cheese royale. And that's what's happening today. You know what's a kitchen staple? The humble potato. You know what else is a kitchen staple? My suite of Goldilocks products, which I use and cook with every single day. You're gonna see me use these things in a way that is going to make cooking easier throughout the video. But before I get into that, because it's been a minute, let me just say thank you to Goldilocks for coming back on as a sponsor and how much I love their pots and pans. You've seen me cook with them. I'm cooking with them in the videos, even when it's not a sponsored video. And that is because we have two things that go great together. We have quality and we have low price. The reason that Goldilocks has priced all of their products this way is because they genuinely want you to be a better cook. They want you to have quality equipment, which I am 100% telling you is the key to cooking with confidence and cooking well and being a better cook. On top of that, lifetime guarantee. So really, if anything goes wrong, you have no risk involved. So these pans are very solid stainless steel construction. They are triple ply. They have riveted handles. They have gorgeous tight fitting lids. This is the kind of equipment I am always calling for because they perform. I put them in the dishwasher, which is not a thing I ever thought I was going to do, but that is one of the selling points of stainless cookware. And I was like, you know what? If they say to do it, I'm gonna do it. Makes my life easier. These pans, I've now turned on the whole family. My mom is cooking with Goldilocks. My kids are cooking with Goldilocks. You too can join the Goldilocks fam. Just go to cookgoldilocks.com/Carla to view the entire collection. In addition to these, they have Dutch ovens. There are other sizes of pots, and they have a brand new skillet with straight sides and a lid, which is one of those shapes that is actually very hard to find and very clutch. I hope you will get into the Goldilocks groove with me. Thank you to Goldilocks for sponsoring this episode. And now you get to watch me cook with all of these things. This is one of those recipes that kind of happened by accident. The origin story, we can go all the way back to my now iconic sweet potatoes with tahini butter, which was in my very first book. I can credit that iconic sweet potato recipe with the origins for potato insanity because it starts with steaming the sweet potato. Steaming is a high heat, high moisture method, and that's why it is so nice for potatoes. They're gonna cook all the way through, but they're gonna retain all of their moisture. I'm cooking them with the jackets on. That also helps keep everything intact inside, and we don't have water leaching in or leaching out. These are Yukons. A German butterball would be absolutely stupendous. Fingerlings would be great. You want something that when you cut into it is more of that waxy texture as opposed to like a red creamer potato, which is like sort of fluffy. Here are some of the pitfalls of roasted potatoes that I'm sure you at home have experienced. Not enough browning, sticking, a potato that has to stay in the oven for so long over dry heat that it shrivels and it gets chewy and the skin is weird. Mostly uneven cooking is really gonna be an issue when you're roasting a potato. And what we all want is like a tender, creamy, gorgeous potato flesh that is crowned by deep Maillard reaction, seared, crunchy goodness on the surface. So by breaking this up into two stages, one of which is incredibly easy and basically hands off, we will ensure absolutely stunning results. Potatoes are steaming over here, and I'm gonna keep an eye on them. This recipe also, if I didn't say it already, very scalable. So when you have a big, tall stock pot like this, plenty more potato can go in there and fill in. You could batch cook this and do 2 or 3x the recipe and then have plenty of room. And the steaming, this is what's genius about steaming, you don't have to really adjust anything else. It's the same amount of water in the bottom of the pan. It's the same amount of fire underneath the pan. And it's gonna take the same amount of minutes, even if you have 3 times as many potatoes. No extra sheet pan, all of that goodness. So now I'm in my 1 quart Goldilocks stainless. This is the perfect size. This is what saucepans exist for making sauces. And if you don't have this exact pan, which I recommend you have, look for something that has rounded corners. There are some pots out there that come straight down and hit where the walls hit the floor is a very hard transition. This part I'm pointing out now because I'm going to talk about it later. You have to be careful with your bechamel and when you're melting the cheese that nothing is getting stuck in those corners. So most of the time I'm going to use a wooden spoon, but occasionally I'm going to switch over to a spatula to make sure that I really get in there. Speaking of butter and flour, my rule for a bechamel is equal parts unsalted butter and all-purpose flour. I guess I'm over like medium low. As soon as the butter is foaming, I'm going to add the flour. And the first step is going to be making a blonde roux. So if you've ever made gumbo, you've made a roux or with gravy, and it's butter and flour cooked together, and it will quickly transition like a caramel from a blonde to a medium to a dark roux. For gumbo, you want a dark roux, and it's all about flavor development. But the longer you cook the flour, the less elasticity and thickening power it has. So for this, I'm cooking it to blonde roux. That's enough to get rid of the raw flour taste, but also for that bechamel to really do work to help hold together the milk that goes in and to basically provide a stable foundation for the cheese to melt into without breaking or getting greasy. It goes quickly. Some people will tell you to use a whisk for this early part. It's not a large volume, and I rarely have opportunity to use the tiny spoon, so I seize it when I can. It'll start to smell a little bit nutty, and the color shift is going to be pretty subtle. So look for it where you're stirring and just kind of pay attention to the starting point because that will really help you know when you're at the end point. So this is like a very light toffee color. So now I am going to use a whisk, switching, and then gradually adding the milk. When you first start adding the milk, it's going to look like kind of a thick, chunky paste. If you've ever made cream puffs or eclairs, this will be similar to you. It's part of that dough making process. And then as the rest of the milk gets in there, it'll thin out to a nice creamy sauce. And then periodically, you do want to get, especially at this stage, make sure you get down into the corner because all of that was lurking in the edges. So you got to kick that back into the main party zone so that it gets incorporated. Making a bechamel comes up when you're making lasagna. Making a bechamel comes up for a lot of cheese sauces. Making bechamel is very similar to the method that you use if you're making Japanese milk bread. Anyway, it's a mother sauce, so just learn it. It's great. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in with tiny spoon because perfectly curved for the edges of this pan, and now you can see I'm not pulling up like clumpy stuff anymore. Partially because I paid attention, also because I have the rounded edges of this pan, so I can actually get in there. Tiny bit higher heat. Looking for a very bare simmer because we jump started that making the roux. It should take around 5 minutes, 6 minutes, and I can season it. The recipe instructions where it says to taste the bechamel and like when it no longer tastes like raw flour, that was a really hard thing for me to understand and to kind of Like, what is that really? Because raw flour doesn't really taste like anything to me. Another way to think about it is that it's gonna go from tasting like raw dough to like bread. It's a dough, it's a batter. So it's like the difference between pancake batter and like what the pancake tastes like when it's cooked. So now I'm going to season with a little bit of cayenne for warmth and some heat and also really nice color, and garlic powder because like garlicky, cheesy sauce just tastes really good. This is like very malleable. So you can use onion powder if you didn't have garlic powder. You could use chili flake if you didn't have cayenne. And then I have some smoked paprika that is not very hot. The first version of this, I put like quite a lot of chipotle powder because I was going for that smokiness, and it was just like overwhelming and too spicy. So I switched to the paprika, which still gives smoke and some heat, but without like blowing out your entire tongue. Because I crave stability so much in my life, I am going to start by melting in Kraft singles. Not only is this gonna give the cheese sauce that like classic movie theater or stadium nacho energy, all of the stabilizers in this non-dairy product, which is exceptional as one of the great processed foods of our time, are going to help stabilize the cheese sauce so that it doesn't get greasy and it doesn't break or separate. So we love that for us. I'm gonna turn the heat off. There's a lot of residual heat in this pan. And the only trick here is using processed cheese. You could substitute this with like an equivalent amount by weight of Velveeta or Rotel or even Philadelphia cream cheese, which also has the good stabilizers, right? Sometimes we need to ensure stability. And the other trick is to make sure that this cheese slice by slice is completely melted before you add the next one. As you go, you're gonna start to see this mixture both thicken up and get like shiny and glossy. I mean, this cheese doesn't actually melt technically, it just like transforms into something stretchy. The heat is very low, really just hot enough to melt this. My older son came down the other day and he saw that we had Kraft singles in the house, which is very rare. And he just like took one immediately, unwrapped it, smelled it, and was like, oh, there's just nothing like it. It's really a treat. Okay, so now I have grated cheddar. Don't get something super aged. You just want like a basic yellow cheddar. And again, I'm gonna gradually add it and mix it until it melts completely every time. And then again, just like clean down your sides so that you don't catch any burning at the lip. But again, this is a reason to have a really good saucepan that is as thick on the sides as it is on the bottom. You want to look for a triple ply pan, which is exactly what these Goldilocks pans are. And if you're using a thinner pan and you know that your pans are thin, something like this is going to potentially create problems for you, where even with stirring and scraping at the bottom of the pan, you're going to start to get some sticking and scorching because the heat isn't even. So I feel really good about my heat being even and steady and controlled, including the heat that's coming up the sides of the pan where the cheese sauce is getting thrown about. I think if you didn't have cheddar, you could definitely use Monterey Jack. You could use something in like the Gruyere family, as long as it's not like a super aged Gruyere, or like a young Gouda could be really nice. Manchego, younger Manchegos, they also melt really beautifully, and that could give you like a really nice like nutty, tangy flavor in this. So all the cheese is in and all the cheese is melted. It smells like smoky in a paprika way and sharp in a cheddar way and like mac and cheesy in a mac and cheesy way. I'm gonna give it a taste. It's much more pouring coating than it was before. But you don't want it so thin that it just runs off onto the platter. Like, we want to hit a viscosity where it's going to stick to the potatoes, but not be like too tight. So if you've made this in advance at this point, you're going to put it into ideally a wide kind of shallow container, glass, because cheese will absorb some like plasticky smell. Let it cool completely, and then cover it airtight and pop it into the fridge. I don't own a microwave, so the way that I would reheat it is in a glass bowl set over a pan of simmering water, a double boiler, and stirring it occasionally until it comes back to this consistency. I steamed some of the same potatoes off 2 days ago, might have been 3 days ago. They have been in the fridge. They are cooked through and they're cold. So the ones that are in here that I steamed, I'll do the exact same thing to. But for now, what I want to do is just cut these in half. I think in the original recipe, I said to cut them in half like after steaming, but I think that they hold together better and longer if you wait to cut them until right before you're going to brown them. This pan is already over medium-high heat. I'm just getting it hot before I add the oil. I'm going to cut these in half the long way. So when the potato is cold, it helps it brown really beautifully because it's not steaming hot anymore, and the proteins and like the starches and everything are holding together in a nice way. So even though these are, you know, completely tender and cooked through, they have a firmness to them, and that's going to really help you out a lot when you're getting them brown, because they're just not going to flake apart in that starchy kind of crumbly way. Any little spots, I'm just going to trim. Once we have hot ones, I can show you what that texture looks like. Side by side, squeezing these, nothing is happening. Squeezing that, and they're gonna flake apart. So if you were to put this hot potato cut side down in hot oil and try to maneuver it, it's gonna break apart on you. So this is gonna give this like glassy, shattery, browned surface. Little trick using stainless steel pans, it's always a great idea to heat them up before you put the oil in. That is going to essentially create a non-stick surface. So any moisture that is in the potato and starts to release when it's cooking is not going to stick. So preheat your pan first. It's really nice and hot. And then I'm adding about 3 tablespoons. Oil is smoking. You want to generously coat it. And again, this is one of those times when the fat is the cooking medium as much as it is a flavor. And you want the entire surface touching the fat. So I'm placing these cut side down. So see the way that these are just like sliding, very slippery little seals. That is the proof is in the pudding of preheating the Goldilocks pan before I put the oil in. And you could really cook anything in here. I have really stopped using my nonstick pan for anything since I got my Goldilocks. So the other key to this recipe is I'm only going to cook the cut side. So that's where I'm going for browning. In the time that it takes for the browning to happen, which is going to be like 7-ish minutes, the potato's going to get hot, you know, all the way to this other end, but the other end is rounded, and like turning it over, it's just not really gonna brown. So we're gonna get all of the payoff of a delicious, creamy, fluffy, moist potato with the browning together. It's a beautiful thing. I did not have this written into the recipe, but standing here staring at these potatoes for 7 minutes made me want to throw some crushed garlic in there, like you would for butter basting a steak. It'll be really nice because we have a little bit of garlic powder in the cheese sauce, so it's like a nice way to layer a flavor that is related but not exactly the same. So I'm going to keep the skins on to prevent burning, not worried about the little paper, and just slide these into the pan. Like immediately you can smell the garlic. So it's going to flavor the oil, which is crisping the potato. So if you had made your cheese sauce ahead of time, this 7 to 10 minute period where your potatoes are crisping is also your cheese sauce warming era. 9 minutes and they're gorge. And I'm just turning them over to the other side, really so that I can behold their beauty and make sure that the second side is warm. And on this side, oh my God, they look so good. I'm gonna season with flaky salt. I didn't season the cut side when I put them down, which is a choice, and that was just to ensure that I didn't get moisture beating up while I was trying to achieve crisping. But I'm not worried about them not being seasoned. It's kind of like the best French fry you ever had, but it's also the best roast potato you ever had, and it's also like potato chip energy and dipping into a sauce. It's hitting on a lot of levels, people. All right, so let's deluxe these up. Hot potatoes, deluxe cheese, can't lose. We have our garlic scented potato insanity, crispy as heck. And if you're just doing like basic side dish of a perfect potato, you're gonna just do this and stop there. Gorgeous. They're already salted with the flaky salt. Outstanding. So at Shake Shack, we had like one of those Bain Marie's that was set in the hot water and it would keep the cheese sauce molten. At the stadium, it's being pumped out of the weird pump thing. And in our world, we're gonna ladle it right from the saucepan. This is the consistency that you wanna see on your reheat, okay? A ribbon, a stream that stays streaming. And if you wanted to, you could just be dipping, but we're dressing. And don't cover up all your beautiful work on your potato. Leave some skin showing, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately, I am still waiting for my actual authentic sport peppers to arrive. But in the meantime, I have another type of spicy green pepper that I'm going to put over these. Oh, the vinegar that's when I start to salivate. The smell of the pickle. Oh my God. Hello. Hello. I don't even want to use a fork for this situation. Thank you for being with me for an absolutely insane way to cook potatoes with the most deluxe cheese sauce. I'm finally getting to take a bite. So what you want to do is you want to have your cheese sauce standing by, because you could keep it in this lowbrow cheese fry kind of a place, or you could go straight to the Swiss Alps and take it to a fondue place. We can't be contained by one identity. We are transversing and transcending continents, literally in bites. That's the move. And then the palate cleanser is you just get to nibble on the hot pepper in between. Wake the palate back up. Like, you could serve this on the side of chicken cutlets if you wanted to, and that would be incredible. Or you could serve this with a gigantic salad, and that would be incredible. I just think you should make it. Before I go and like literally just dive into this pot of cheese sauce, thank you again to Goldilocks. We steamed, we fried, and we cheesed, and we did it all with these gorgeous stainless steel pans. Thank you, Goldilocks, for making this potato dream come true. Oh. We're gonna ladle it right from the saucepan. Say cheese. Oh my God, did you hear my stomach growl?
Yeah, mine also did, like 1 second before.